It began with whispers, a mission deep inside South Vietnam, but what unfolded that morning still shocks history. Over 500 unarmed Vietnamese men, women, and children slaughtered by US soldiers in a single village. Why did it happen? And how for months did the world fail to see the truth? March 16, 1968. My Lai, a quiet hamlet in Quang Ngai province, had already suffered under years of war. The US Army, plagued by uncertainty over who was friend or foe, was tense and exhausted. In this atmosphere, soldiers from Company C prepared for what they were told would be a crucial mission. Just before sunrise, the 23rd Infantry Division's 1st Battalion, 20th Infantry Regiment, led by Captain Ernest Medina and Lieutenant William Calley, moved into position. Intelligence described My Lai as a haven for Viet Cong fighters. The pressure to show results pushed commanders and soldiers to the edge. But as American helicopters landed, something became immediately clear. No shots fired, no opposition. The villagers, many still wiping the sleep from their eyes, emerged peacefully from their homes. The order: round up everyone found, no exceptions. At first, soldiers gathered groups of villagers, elderly men, women, children, onto dirt roads and rice paddies. Nervousness spread across the ranks. Then, with no warning, the staccato roar of gunfire erupted. Under direct orders, soldiers began shooting unarmed civilians. Lieutenant William Calley, leading a platoon, was heard insisting the villagers were Viet Cong. Eyewitnesses later recounted Calley instructing his men to fire, even as the terrified crowd pleaded for their lives. What followed was systematic and mass killing. Bayonets, grenades, and machine guns were used indiscriminately. Soldiers shot people at point-blank range. Some women and girls were sexually assaulted before being killed. These accounts are confirmed by several survivor testimonies and later investigations. Elsewhere, Captain Ernest Medina, Calley's superior, was seen ignoring pleas for mercy. While accounts differ as to Medina's direct orders, there is evidence he failed to stop the violence as it raged throughout My Lai. On the ground, a small US Army reconnaissance helicopter circled above. Its pilot, Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson Jr., noticed the mounting horror below. Bodies strewn, civilians gunned down, no evidence of enemy fire. Stunned, Thompson landed his Hiller OH-23 Raven. Joined by his crew, Glenn Andriotta and Lawrence Colburn, he tried to intervene. Thompson confronted American officers and soldiers, threatening to open fire if the killings didn't stop. Down the road, Thompson and his crew rescued fleeing villagers, physically blocking US troops from continuing their onslaught. Risking court-martial, they airlifted survivors, including a young Vietnamese child found alive amid piles of bodies, to relative safety. Thompson radioed back to headquarters, reporting what he was witnessing, the deliberate murder of non-combatants, yet headquarters failed to act immediately, and slaughter continued for hours after his first warnings. Despite making repeated reports by radio, the command at Task Force Barker hesitated. It wasn't until Thompson landed at headquarters, after evacuating the wounded child, that Lieutenant Colonel Frank A. Barker finally ordered a cease to operations at My Lai. By then, nearly the entire village was left in ruins. Photographs taken in the aftermath show bodies strewn in ditches, homes burned, the wounded and dead mixed in the mud. Officially, the military initially described My Lai as a successful engagement, reporting high enemy casualties. For months, the true horror remained hidden. Commanders filed sanitized accounts, and medals were even awarded to some participants. But rumors slowly spread. Thompson and other witnesses persisted, pressing superiors and authorities to investigate. Their testimonies sparked a cascade of leaks, and eventually the story reached investigative journalists back home. When the facts became public, outrage exploded across the United States and the world. In late 1969, an Army inquiry led to charges against 26 American officers and soldiers, including Calley and Medina, who claimed they believed they were ordered to eliminate enemy combatants. At trial, evidence showed the vast majority murdered at My Lai were women, children, and elderly, none armed, none resisting. Survivor accounts lined up with photographic proof and corroborated by US soldiers. Lieutenant William Calley was the only individual convicted for his direct role in the killings. Sentenced to life in prison, he ultimately served just 3.5 years under house arrest after his sentence was heavily reduced. Most other accused were acquitted or pardoned. For Hugh Thompson, his role in exposing and halting the massacre came at a steep price. Ostracized by many in the army and criticized publicly, Thompson would struggle for years, developing severe post-traumatic stress disorder and facing waves of condemnation. Yet Thompson's stand became legendary in later years. In 1998, 30 years after the massacre, he and his crew received the Army's highest medal for bravery, not involving enemy combat. Survivors of My Lai personally thanked him at the Sun My Memorial. Today, the My Lai Massacre stands as a searing example of how atrocities can happen when accountability breaks down, and how a few individuals, at great risk to themselves, can make the difference between silence and justice. How did it happen? The evidence points to a combination of flawed intelligence, deadly pressure to produce enemy casualties, and weak oversight. The cover-up was only broken by persistent witnesses who refused to let the truth be buried. In every war, there are moral lines. At My Lai, most were crossed. But without Hugh Thompson and his crew, the world might never have learned what happened in those last harrowing hours.